Get ready as we look at the top 10 most provocative moments of the Andy Griffith Show. I know what you're thinking. How could anything in Mayberry be provocative? Well, from moral dilemmas to shocking secrets, we're counting down the top 10 most provocative moments of the Andy Griffith Show. Buckle up, because this wholesome classic pushed more boundaries than you might think. Let's count them down. At number 10, we've got Opie, America's favorite little redhead. While Opie's adventures usually taught wholesome lessons, some of his experiences ventured into surprisingly serious territory, especially for a family-friendly sitcom. Take, for instance, the memorable episode where Opie accidentally kills a mother bird with his slingshot.
Please, why would I?
It led to deep conversations about guilt, death, and the consequences of our actions. It's hard to imagine many shows in the early 60s directly addressing such heavy emotional themes. The heart-to-heart between Andy and Opie forced kids and their parents to think about how to handle making serious mistakes and how we learn to deal with loss and responsibility. Dark stuff, right? But also a testament to how the Andy Griffith Show wasn't afraid to tackle life's tougher lessons, even in small-town Mayberry. Next up, at number 9, let's talk about the women of Mayberry. Sure, on the surface, characters like Ellie Walker and Helen Crump seem to fit the mold of supporting female roles, but look closer and you'll see that they were quietly challenging gender norms. Ellie wasn't just Sheriff Taylor's love interest, she was the town pharmacist, a career woman in a time when most female TV characters were confined to being housewives. She was outspoken, strong-willed, and didn't back down. Not even to the sheriff himself. And then there's Helen Crump, a school teacher who wasn't just there to sweeten Andy's love life, but someone who had a firm hand and stood on her own, all while challenging Mayberry's small-town mindset. For the early 60s, these women were more than just background characters. They quietly pushed against the boundaries of what women were expected to be on television. Even in Mayberry, women could be both nurturing and independent. So let's talk about Barney Fife. We can't talk about provocative moments without mentioning his romantic pursuits. Coming in at number 8 is Barney's relentless pursuit of Thelma Lou. And let's not forget about Juanita, the unseen waitress at the diner that Barney was constantly flirting with over the phone. While Barney's charm and bumbling ways were always part of the joke, looking back, his approach to romance seems a little forward. Barney was persistent, to say the least, and at times his over-the-top flirting was more pushy than playful. What seemed innocent back in the day might now raise eyebrows, especially in a modern context where we have a better understanding of boundaries. But Barney's antics are a classic example of how the comedic sensibilities of the 1960s could sometimes cross the line in today's world. At number 7, we venture into more serious territory. The Andy Griffith Show aired during the 1960s, a decade marked by the civil rights movement and a nationwide conversation about race. But in Mayberry, the topic of race was largely missing. For a show that depicted everyday life, the absence of African American characters and any discussion of the civil rights struggles happening across the country was striking. While crowd scenes occasionally included people of color, it wasn't until Opie's piano lesson in season 7 that a person of color was given a speaking role.
Sheriff Taylor, I'm Flip Conroy.
In that episode, Flip Conroy, a former pro football player, returns to Mayberry and offers to coach Opie's football team. The provocative moment comes when he confronts Andy about a parenting decision and then drives his point home by playing a stunning piece of classical music on the piano, challenging the small-town sheriff's assumptions. For a show so deeply rooted in Americana, the silence around race feels noticeable, raising questions about whether Mayberry was intentionally avoiding these tough conversations. Coming in at number 6, we've got one of Andy's most defining traits as a sheriff, his decision not to carry a gun. In a time when law enforcement on TV was often portrayed as tough and armed to the teeth, Andy Taylor's approach was a departure from the norm. He preferred to rely on his words and wisdom rather than a weapon to solve problems. While this was a refreshing take on leadership and power, it was also a radical choice for a law enforcement officer in the 60s. Can a sheriff truly be effective without a gun? Andy believed in a different kind of strength, but this choice surely raised eyebrows, both in Mayberry and with viewers at home. At number 5, we're asking the question, was Sheriff Taylor too soft? Throughout the series, there were plenty of times when Andy bent the rules or let someone off with just a warning, especially when it came to the town's lovable misfit Otis, or his bumbling deputy Barney. Andy's justice was homespun and personal, but some might argue that it was also selective. For some, this approach was refreshing. Andy's wisdom and empathy made him a beloved figure. But others might say his form of justice didn't always follow the law to the letter. Did Sheriff Taylor have too much leeway in Mayberry? What do you think? At number 4, let's talk about Andy's love life. The sheriff may have been the strong, silent type, but there was plenty of romance in Mayberry. From Ellie Walker, the pharmacist, to schoolteacher Helen Crump, Andy wasn't exactly shy about mixing business with pleasure. While these relationships were pretty tame by today's standards, they were notable for the time. The question is, though, should a sheriff be dating women who were often intertwined with his professional life? These romances sometimes caused tension, adding a layer of drama to the otherwise peaceful town of Mayberry. At number 3, we've got Andy Taylor as a widowed sheriff raising his son Opie on his own, a rarity at the time. The portrayal of a single father as the head of a stable, nurturing household was unconventional in the early 1960s, when most family sitcoms centered around traditional two-parent households. Of course, Aunt Bee performed the traditional tasks assumed by TV moms of the era, but the show subtly challenged societal norms by depicting Andy's ability to successfully balance his demanding job with raising a child, without the typical nuclear family setup. Andy was hands-on, providing Opie with moral guidance while keeping a calm, fatherly presence, proving that a household could thrive with a single parent at its helm. And at number 2, we have Mayberry's town drunk, Otis. Now, we love Otis, but let's face it, the idea of making alcoholism funny could be seen as controversial. Otis would lock himself in jail after a bender, and everyone just accepted it as part of life. Otis was a lovable character, but his portrayal might make modern viewers wonder, was Mayberry turning a blind eye to a more serious issue? In many ways, Otis's lighthearted treatment on the show reflected a broader cultural attitude of the time, where alcohol dependence was often swept under the rug. While his antics made us laugh, they also left a lingering question. Should the town have done more to help Otis rather than treat his drinking as a joke? Before we get to number 1, here are a few provocative moments that earned honorable mention. Marijuana in Mayberry. One of the more surprising moments on the Andy Griffith Show is when Barney suspects a local farmer might be growing marijuana.
Marijuana or some other illegal crop.
The very mention of marijuana was a bold move for a family-friendly 1960s show. While the episode ends in a humorous misunderstanding, the fact that the show briefly touched on such a controversial topic added an unexpected layer to Mayberry's wholesome image. For viewers at the time, this playful nod to a larger societal issue was both surprising and daring for its time. Accidental intoxication. Several episodes featured characters accidentally getting drunk, with Barney often falling victim to an unexpected drink. However, one of the more memorable moments involved Aunt Bee and her friends becoming unintentionally tipsy after trying a traveling medicine man's Indian elixir. This led to some comical scenes of the usually proper women in a less than sober state. These moments were funny, but also pushed boundaries, as the lighthearted portrayal of accidental intoxication brought an edgy twist to Mayberry's typically innocent atmosphere. Andy's lying. Andy Taylor, usually known for his honesty and wisdom, had a habit of bending the truth. Most of the time, his lies were harmless and meant to spare Barney's feelings or cover for his mistakes. But occasionally, Andy lied just to avoid difficult conversations, showing that even the beloved sheriff wasn't perfect. These little fibs, while never malicious, added complexity to his character and stood out in a show that often centered on moral integrity. It showed that even in Mayberry, things weren't always black and white. Now, here's the number 1 most provocative moment in Mayberry. Deputy Barney Fife and his loaded gun. Let's be honest, Barney's gun was practically a character in itself, and it almost always led to chaos. Barney's clumsy handling of his firearm was hilarious to audiences back then, but it's a lot more unsettling when you think about it today. Barney was only allowed one bullet, which he famously kept in his shirt pocket. Whenever he tried to load it into his revolver, things rarely went smoothly, leading to misfires or other comic mishaps. But imagine someone waving around a gun in today's world. It's not just comedic, it's nerve-wracking. In fact, the show often used this gag to highlight the contrast between Barney's overzealous nature and Andy's calm, collected approach to law enforcement. The show poked fun at Barney's incompetence, but this recurring joke also raised questions about the balance between authority and responsibility. Should a deputy who's clearly unfit to handle a weapon be trusted with one, even in Mayberry? It was a provocative yet lighthearted way to examine the issue of gun safety long before it became a hot topic in modern culture. And there you have it, folks, the top 10 most provocative moments in Mayberry. Did we miss any? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into your favorite classic TV show. Now click the video on your screen for more of The Andy Griffith Show.